Okay, we're on YouTube.
Call the meeting January 15th, the Port and Commerce Advisory Board to order. Ask you to make sure your phones are muted, and we'll stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk read the roll, please?
Roll call. Scudder?
Here.
Regis?
Here.
Atwood?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
And Chair Joppa.
Here.
You have a quorum.
And have we heard from Board Member Groom?
He did
Yes,
say
he's
he was not going to be able to make
Okay,
it.
so he'd be excused?
Yes.
Okay, so if we have some audience today, but I think they are honored guests. But if there's anyone who would like to speak now on any subject that we're not going to have a hearing on? Okay, hearing none. So I need a motion to approve the agenda. It's not a very complicated agenda, but is there a motion?
Approval of the agenda, consent agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion to approve and second. Would the clerk call the roll?
Voting on the approval of the agenda and consent agenda on today's meeting is the approval of December 4th, 2024 Port and Commerce Advisory Board minutes. And that is everything. I'm sorry. Oh, calling for the vote is Scudder?
Yes.
Regis?
Yes.
Atwood?
Yep.
Smith?
Yes.
And Chair Joppa.
Yes.
That has been approved.
Okay. So, we have no resolutions or other items. It's proclamations and special orders. Proclamations, none. We have the city administration report. It's in your packet, and I would ask Ashley if there's anything that you would like to add to this.
Sure, I'll just give the highlights. I think the opening that our city manager wrote is probably the most interesting, and it affects people that live in town the most, and that's the utility bills have been split. So instead of receiving one bill, you'll receive a separate bill for your electric and a separate bill for your water and sewer. And this was done for transparency. It was a recommendation by the auditors, and eventually it reduced costs. So we've heard a lot of people coming in surprised that the city had started charging for water and sewer, where we had always charged a flat fee, but it was not easily distinguishable because it was all lumped in to become your electric bill. So what's important to remember is there are no new charges or fees. You're just going to be able to see your electric and based on your usage in one bill and your flat fee water bill in the other. And so all of the electric department questions and bill pay is being handled at the City Hall Annex, which is just kitty corner. It's the old library, which is what everyone still calls it. And they're handling all the questions and bills. And the most important thing is if you're on auto pay, your electric auto pay is still functioning, but it's only going to pay your electric bill. So you'll need to set up a new auto pay for your water, which you can do with the same login. You just log in like you normally would to pay or to look at your electric and then set up. And there's actually instructions with screenshots in the CMR. And if you have any questions, you can ask Chris because he's already done it. No, just kidding.
I was the pioneer in bill
Yeah,
splitting.
he was our test subject, and it was much appreciated. And just a few other things, it's not in your CMR, but our Deputy Fire Chief, Kate McCoy, has won the Ken Ackerley Fire Service Leadership Award, so that's pretty cool. We have an open house for the teen rec room, which is at the senior center. It's in the basement on Friday, January 17th from 4 to 6, and that's just showing off the renovated space, and you can meet the staff. And then the teen rec room actually opens for business with teens on Monday, January 20th, and the hours of operation will be from 2 to 8 p.m. So that's pretty exciting that they're getting that going. ComDev is still pushing the surveys. Their marketing blitz is coming to an end, but they're open till May, so I think closer to when they'll close, they'll probably get to it again. And then the public library, TBD on the dates, are hosting workshops to boost digital literacy. And so that's basically just people who are less comfortable using devices and the internet can go in there and get kind of the 101 basics of it. So that's it for us.
Question? A couple, and then we'll pass the harbor master for brief report. No. Sorry, thought I had it off. Couple of things that happened recently. Big weather brought trees down.
You noticed.
And, well, I heard about it. And also a slide. Are we anywhere in the range of asking for disaster funding, or?
I don't have any information on disaster funding. They did start the generators up and we are off generator power. That I know.
So on the auto pay, Carol and I have several places where now we have two bills. If the auto pay goes directly to the electric, if someone somehow misses setting up an auto pay for their water, will they get some sort of leeway before they're found
Yes.
delinquent?
Yep. Well, you should get a water bill in the mail, a paper bill, and you'll need that paper bill to set up your auto pay because it'll have your new account number on it. And then they're not charging any fees as this gets going and people get used to it.
Okay. And just to clarify, the cost to the user will not change.
Not change.
But there could be an increased cost to the city to administrate two bills, is that correct?
Well, that's going to be de minimis compared to shifting the responsibility of the electric bill to the electric department. Because while that's an enterprise fund, they do pay into the general fund to administer the bills. And you'll see in the CMR, with this change and others, we were able to budget for a 2-cent winter rate decrease starting October 25. So the cost of sending out the paper bills is not going to be more than the savings from the change.
Okay, that's what we'd hope for. And this wasn't in your report, but the PACAB had made a recommendation to support the chamber's, a change in the chamber's funding method. What is the status of that? I know the council at one point reviewed it and then took it off the table.
I believe that was passed along. Can you speak to that?
I can speak to that.
Okay.
The council just approved the flat $300,000 for the year, so they did not approve any changes to the funding. Although it's in the chamber report that I'll speak on later, but they are trying to get a work session together between the chamber and city.
Okay.
Right. But your
council.
recommendation was
Okay.
passed along, I guess.
We'll come to that in order then.
Oh, and there was the 25,000 for the SBDC position that
Yes.
the city was taking on to save the chamber that exact amount of money.
Yes, that was approved, and that's also in the chamber report.
Okay, well, it sounds like the chamber is getting support that they need. All right, if that's all, if all the questions for the city manager, assistant city manager, okay. And I don't see a report here from the harbor master, but you know, what's going on in the harbor?
It should be included in that same CMR that.
Oh, polar bear.
With everyone.
Oh, maybe it's on the back page. I see rock trucks going down that way. Are you guys handling rock over there?
From SMIC or down?
I don't know where they're coming from.
I think the port is working on, they're doing a emergency upgrade to the side of their dock. That's where some rock is heading.
Oh, I can speak to that if you're referring to the freight
Okay.
dock, yes.
That'll come up, all right.
It'll come up.
No, we finished the year strong. We started out running also. I think you guys may have missed a CMR in there right after our last meeting. But we've started our RFP for reappraisal of the 45 lots, these lots within the city that we administer. We're getting ready to go out for the dock project that we're looking at doing in the coming year.
They're fully funded?
I do have a question regarding the appraisals. Is that going to affect the leases that the city has with those?
That will, yeah. So every 5 year, they do a readjust, they reappraise all the lots and make adjustments to that. And then every year, there's a a small adjustment that's done on a CPI adjustment every year to keep it in line.
I have another question that I don't know if this is a city question or not, but is it okay if I ask another question?
Yeah.
Okay. I saw on Facebook, of course, that the city, somebody posted that the city is looking at a new plan for the Lowell Point Tunnel project, the diversion project. Is that inaccurate, or is that just?
The plan has not changed, to my knowledge, and it's a long-range plan, so.
Okay, I didn't think so, but something I came across on one of those sites, and I just wanted to see if there was any truth to it. It doesn't sound like there is, so, okay, thank you.
Okay, any questions for the harbor master? Anyone? Okay, so, we ask Board Member Atwood to put on his railroad hat. His railroad report.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, the report's here in writing. A couple of things that I wanted to note. One is the next substantial pipe shipments scheduled for mid-March. We'll be taking approximately 3,300 plus tons of steel pipe at that time, and there'll be another ship following shortly after. To your question earlier about recent storms and rock work that you saw, we've been doing some east side repair to our freight dock. We had some former storm surge damage and a little bit of sloughing, and we got a contractor on that just this last week. And it happened to be good timing because they put enough big rock in place to prevent this recent storm from causing any further damage. And the work is just about complete. That's just a couple of days of moving some stone, which we already had stockpiled. And that's all I have, unless there's other questions.
No, thank you. It makes me ask a question. I'm sorry. But based on what we're seeing in California and around the world, and just the inadvertent surges and here and there, how far down the road are we looking for both the current facilities and future facilities? I think they'll speak to that in a minute, but is that on our radar? Is improving the tidal boundary?
So I can just speak to our plans for the freight dock and, you know, the continued armoring, and we'll do it, continue at the standard that we're at now. But I don't know that we're planning, for example, to elevate the surface of the dock. And Mr. Chair, I think there's actually a question as to whether, I mean, clearly people are beginning to see some adverse weather events, but like the larger question of, you know, ocean rise, and I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm not trying to be an alarmist, certainly, but I have poo-pooed some of this stuff in the past and come to regret it. So, okay, so we've gotten through the railroad report, and Board Member Sutter can maybe give us an update on the chamber, but we don't have the chamber here itself.
Yeah, Samantha asked me to provide her report. She just got back from her training in Tucson, and she's had a lot of catch up to do, so she asked if I would mind stepping in, and I'm happy to. So the chamber report, I did ask her to send it to the city clerk to include in the packet, so it's all right there. But the big things I'd like to touch on is through the negotiations with the city and from what we've been hearing from the public, there's a call for more communication, and so now the chamber newsletter, which used to be a member benefit only, is now open to everybody, members or non-members, and so anybody can sign up for that newsletter by going to the Seward Chamber of Commerce website at seward.com and just signing up for that, which is great. State Chamber of Commerce annual report is going to be on January 30th at the Breeze Inn at noon, so if you want to hear more about what the chamber's got going on their annual report, Samantha will be giving that on January 30th. To answer the questions regarding negotiations with the city, we are still negotiating the economic development contract, and so there's going to be a work session that's to be determined, that date is to be determined to finalize that contract. But the city council approved the $300,000 that was originally in the budget. They did not approve any additional funding to the chamber. However, as the clerk pointed out, the City of Seward is going to absorb the $25,000 annual payment to the SBDC Small Business Advisor, so that salary that the chamber was absorbing for the last 3 years is now going to be absorbed fully by the city. So it was the city paying, it was split 3 ways between the Chamber of Commerce, the city, and I believe it's UAA, and now the city is going to pay for $50,000 a year, so 2/3 of that, and then UAA, I believe, is the other sponsor of that. And then, as I stated earlier, Samantha has been going to Tucson for the Chamber of Commerce Institute for Organization Management, IOM, and she just completed her second of a 4-year certification program, so more to come on what she learned from that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Questions for Chamber?
Oh, and there's a QR code if anybody wants to sign up for that newsletter.
Okay. So that completes the chamber report, and we move to presentations. And we've been fortunate to have discussed a little bit of the Alaska Railroad development project. We have representatives from the railroad, both local and from northern areas. So if you'd introduce yourself, and we'll just sort of suspend the regular order of business and let you present.
Great. Thank you, Chair Jaffa. Yeah, my name is Christy Terry. I'm the Vice President of Real Estate from the Alaska Railroad. You all know Dwayne Atwood. He's our port manager. And then we also have Rhonda, the Assistant Port Manager here. I'll introduce Mickey, and then later I'll let him introduce his team. But Mickey is the President and CEO of Port of Tomorrow, and also the representative for Seward Company, who's our developer for this project. We're excited to be here. We have been doing a big public outreach push, and we know that this body is critical to not only the marine infrastructure piece, but also the economic piece of what's going on. So I'll be the briefest of the two presentations, just in that I'll just give a more comprehensive plan about some other projects we have before we talk specifically to the passenger dock. So just a reminder, because everything we do is guided by our mission statement, and you know, it's written up there, but I'm going to take time just to read through it. Through excellent customer service and sound business management practices, the railroad provides safe, efficient, and economical transportation and real estate services that support and grow economic development opportunities for the state of Alaska. And what does that mean for Seward? Seward is really the real estate piece. The real estate department manages the port here, but also then we support the other business centers with our freight coming in over the docks. That is a great benefit to the city, and also the passenger piece with the passenger trains that you see all summer. The two biggest projects that we're currently working on is the real estate transaction project with the new passenger dock and terminal, and Mickey will provide much more background on that project. But you know, I've been coming to this body and council and to the community talking about how this facility that we currently have is at the end of its useful life. For many of you long-timers know that dock, the passenger dock, was originally built as a freight dock, and much of the Alaska pipeline came over that dock as cargo, and then just over the years the cargo changed to the two-legged kind. So in 2017, as part of this community, we did a big master plan project, and since that time we've really identified that project as our main item that needs to get completed to continue the port's benefit not only to the community of Seward, but to South Central, to all the way up into the interior, and really the entire state of Alaska. So the other project on this slide is our freight dock expansion project. That was a MURAD grant that we obtained in the 2019 timeframe. And before we were able to move forward with that project, COVID hit in 2020. So MURAD has a rule that boots have to be on the ground. So before we could get that team up here as part of their system, COVID hit and there was a travel ban. So that project's really been delayed 2 years. We are currently going through, permitting, the NEPA process. That's a $20 million grant with a $5 million contribution directly from the Alaska Railroad. And the entirety of that project lengthens the dock. It's wider at the end, but we did have to scale back with that 2-year pause. And I'm sure some of you in the construction field here know about the escalation in cost during that time. So we're exploring full build out, but the first project, you'll see there's a project sheet in front of you on that freight dock project that has additional details and contact information. If you want to find out more information, reach out to me. So what does that project look like? You'll see on the lower left-hand corner, that's the full build-out. It's harder to see the lighter phase 1 that the MIRAD grant will cover. But, we are getting additional capacity. It helps with the environmental piece. I know that Chair Jaffa talked about, that we all need to be concerned about that. It doesn't have the vessels circling in the bay. We're able to take multiple ships at the same time, safer for those larger vessels. And really, as we work with those large container ships that go into Anchorage, it's like Voldemort, I won't name them, but we all know who they are. What works for them for contingency planning, which really is not only for the community, but for the whole state of Alaska, knowing that we can get goods if something happens to that port. In Alaska. And so you'll see some of the dock history there. I won't have to go through it, but the slide on the picture on your right hand side shows those frac sand bags that we've been seeing, those proppant coming in for the North Slope development. Earlier the port manager talked about the heavy pipe that we've had, and I know we've heard earlier there was a little bit of a hiccup when we were doing the bridge repairs, not this winter, but last winter, and we're not able to get trains into the community. We really had a backlog of those materials coming in. And you'll notice in the port manager's report this month, because we've had that open south end and the weather's been great, we're really ahead of schedule moving that freight out. And it really is, again, feeding another business sector with the freight side of things that we're trying to encourage that. This dock will help with the burden of some of that, or the impacts of some of that on the property. And also the other piece of that that you'll see with this full build out slide is extension of Port Avenue, where we're getting Port Avenue through our yard, really to be determined the final orientation of that as we're going through the permitting process, but really takes that industrial impact out from the more tourism-based Port Avenue, going out through the city, small boat harbor side, and really getting it through our yard and out to the highway, which is very much a safer component. And this slide is really full build out of that freight dock. You can see the extension, the concept isn't the same, but it shows you the larger cruise ship dock. What you'll also see on this slide is the old coal facility. That we've taken down that arm and we have more work planned. Some of the smaller projects, just to mention, are, the port manager down here is really working for the benefit of Seward. We are creating more upland space for that pipe, for that frac sand, for more commercial opportunities in the community, filling those lots 1 through 3. Shared against that airport right there, creating that more space for local businesses. Where the coal laydown area is, you'll see a lot of what's happening there is staging for that freight dock project. So we're making sure as soon as we have permitting and that schedule's ready, we're ready to do that build out. And then also our depot, and I didn't look to know if it's in place or not, but we're happy that the Coastal Classic is the largest growing, fastest growing sector on our passenger trains. So we're upsizing that luggage tent at the depot. I know the building permit's been issued and maybe that tent's already in place. I'm sorry.
The structure's in place.
Structure's in place. So you'll see the white tent this summer. And then just some other uplands that we're planning, but really that full build out piece. And finally, before I turn it over, the other handout that you have in front of you is a snapshot of the economic benefit of the port to the community. It's not only the construction dollars that we're putting in really over the next 4 to 5 years, but also things that we've done, and what that passenger market produces for the community, the jobs, the number of passengers, and just the average spending. So if you have any questions on that, give me a call, but it really is a good snapshot to show the benefit to the community for our projects. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mickey. Many of you have seen him speak before, but again, we just wanted to make sure that this body feels the love. We're available for questions, and you really see the things that the community with your expertise cares about. So, Mickey Richardson.
Thank you, Christy. I apologize because Christy told me we had 10 minutes and I think she just took 9.5. So, but as always, it's an honor to be here, Mr. Chairman, and I feel like we've come so much that I'll expect my 2 bills, the water and electric bill, that will come separately now. But it is really an honor to be here, and as just a quick reminder, the Port of Tomorrow, the owner of the Seward Company, is Alaska-based company, and also with me today is Jake, who is the head engineer from our construction company, Turnagain Marine, which is also Anchorage-based, who will be doing the construction on site. And just a little quick update from their side as well is that they'll be staking corner posts for the new terminal this week. So we're really excited that progress is happening on site for the construction, and I'll get into that a little bit more. And as Christy mentioned in her earlier comments that, really this facility was built in 1965. The terminal building was originally, I think part of that was a locomotive repair center that became the terminal building. So we're really excited about taking this from 1965 to the modern era and cruise travel. And I thought first today I would start though with the really exciting news. We are very grateful for the city's help in partnering with the railroad and the city to create this EPA grant. And if you would ask me were we going to receive this when we filed, I would have said 3% chance. I actually heard from CAT that we had won, and then I heard shortly after from one of the largest engineering firms in the country, and they said, "How did you guys win?" Because there were only 25 awards in our category, and we were one of the only full awards. The engineering firm said they had submitted over 40 applications from ports from San Diego to Portland, Maine, and we beat them out in every way. He said, "I want to know what you did." And I think what we did is we worked together, and I think coming together in this project with the city, we can really do some really amazing things. And I like this graphic because, we did 45.7 million plus our 10% that we're providing from the Seward Company, works out to over 50 million. We are working with Royal Caribbean to commission a study. We believe that the Port of Seward will be the greenest port in the world, and you'll have shore power from the minute that we open. So we're really excited about that capability. It will be the first new port in Alaska that actually has shore power as part of the original construction. And we're really excited also about that lower number. The cost really to Seward is zero. And we've really included everything in this grant, to administration costs, to also a training program for AvTech, because we really want for this to be kind of one of those leading places in the world where you'd come to learn about shore power. Part of the system that causes it to run up to the 50 million is that we are actually powering the ships when they come into port, primarily off a battery backup system. So normally when a ship comes to town, they plug in and they plug into the grid. We have this gap in the middle where we're plugging into a battery set, so we're not pulling power off of the local grid. We're basically taking the excess power when the ship's not in port and collecting that, so when the ship is in port, it's utilizing the power that normally would have just disappeared within the network. So we're really excited about this. We think that it's a model for smaller communities around the world. It'll be the first of its kind, and it will be here in Seward when we open in 2026. We are working with the city and the city management and EPA. This project is rolling. Engineering is rolling. The utility, your locally owned utility company is very much engaged, and we're really excited about this. Real advantage for the city of Seward. Makes it a far more desirable port than anywhere else in Alaska. As we talked about, we are rolling on the building. Building is really for us first phase of this project. Terminal building is through 95% design, and everything has been approved, so we're rocking right along. There will be some additional dirt work. You might have seen them out on the site doing test holes and making sure that we're ready for construction. But the plans are moving forward on schedule, on time. Just very quickly, the area that we'll be working is the existing port area. So the construction that you'll see will not expand beyond what's currently there. The real changes that you'll notice is the existing facility sits out over the water. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's like 1,800 piles that it sits on, something like
2,200 actually.
2,200. So we'll be pulling all that out of the water. I think it's actually going to create a much more environmentally friendly facility as well. The existing terminal also sits over the water, and we'll be moving that ashore. So as we look at similar layout, just with the new plan, the new dock has a transfer span that connects us out to the water, but the dock itself is more modern. It will be the largest floating dock for the cruise industry in the state. And you'll see that this is the way it lines up. It pushes us just a hair because of the way that it is designed, just a little bit more towards the freight side, gives us a little bit larger cruise ship pocket between the seawall and the dock itself. And then also you'll see that terminal building moving ashore, sits on the shore, and you can see the bus flow along with the train, passenger train tracks that currently exist on the site. Terminal building, one of the things that I'm really proud of this project is that two things really is that we realize this is the largest community space in Kenai Peninsula, and we really wanted to make sure that it was designed and set up for the community. So we wanted to make sure that we have this open layout also. We're setting up the system so it does what we call dispatch loading with our bus system, so that buses basically pull up the curb, pick up guests, and transfer them out. And then also you'll see that little entrance sign. We have a direct path as guests are already checked in, a way for them to get back into town. And a lot of our visits throughout town, we heard that we really want to make sure that the visitors know that the ship is not the destination until they leave, that really the Seward, the community, is the destination, and we want to make sure they can check in and get back off, so we created an express lane within the facility to move guests back off the ship more smoothly once they've checked in. The floor plan is completely open, so even the terminal desks are all mobile. We put some additional things in the building to make it more community friendly, and all of our chairs, and you can see the dividing walls, those are all movable, changeable, depends on what the needs of the community are. Here in this diagram, you can see just the passenger flow, those checking in, and you see the blue line down the middle. That's that little express lane that we put in. It's designed with no distraction, straight to the shuttle pickup location, so the guests can come back off the ship and go visit the community before they set sail. And then also you'll see that on the left-hand side, we have enclosed right, left is open. And we know that as we see today that we have winter that affects the flow of things, and so we wanted to have open storage so we can store better maintained vehicles, port operations, and have a lot of flexibility having that left side open. Just a little bit of a flow plan. I'm not going to spend too much time, it's in your packet, but just kind of give you a diagram of the way the flow. You can see that purple line on the outside, that's what we call the dispatch loading. So those buses sit in the middle, and then as they go to pick up guests, they loop back around and then pull out. And so that way we always have forward movement. There's never guests walking behind vehicles. So a very strategic design done by Junga at Turnagain, and so we're really proud of the way that will flow in the future and the new facility. The new dock, like I said, larger, wider, and all floating. So as the tides come and go, it rises and lowers with the ship, designed to handle the mooring of the ship, so the ship's tied to it. So as it goes up and down, the ship also moves with it. Better handling for luggage, better guest experience because they're walking across the flat ramp directly into the ship door. So there's no stairs, no forklifts required to move stair platforms for tidal change. Here it's all essentially moving up and down with the tide. The reason that this is wider than any existing dock is because you are a home port, provisioning port. So we had to make it wide enough to turn trucks that will be handling foods and other storage that comes to a ship as at home ports here in Seward. So you can see that 100 feet wide, 748 feet in length as it connects to the transfer span that's ramp. There is a little bit of a change. Thank you to the railroad. They invested in the transfer span so that we could handle a little bit more freight operation here as well. So the transfer span, the green piece that you can see there in the middle, in this diagram has an overhead. And what the railroad did was put in money so we could engineer that to be a little bit heavier on the underneath and remove all of the overhead structure. So it allows for us to move container trucks up and down, and we're not having to worry about any type of height restrictions. So the railroad very committed to the freight side of the business as well. Just really quickly run through our plan so you can see those outer dolphins beyond where the current dock is. Those would go into place first. You can see that the barge is out there. One thing we do really want to assure the public and those working in the freight areas is that our construction is designed in such a way to not interfere with the flow of freight or cruise ship passengers. So this you'll see on my calendar here is October of 2025. So once the season is over this coming year, then we'll go to work to start the removal of the dolphins, adding those dolphins in, removing of the concrete deck and those 2,200 piles that are out there. And you can see that terminal building in the upper left is already in construction mode. So when we get into the water side, that terminal building will be well on its way as well through the summer. We get into January of 26, we're adding those new mooring dolphins that hold, reaction dolphins that hold the float in place, finalizing the removal of the demolition of the current dock. And then as we move into March, then the final reaction dolphin gets put in. We have already ordered the floats, so they're in construction already, and they're all engineered for the shore power as well, so all the handling systems built into the dock itself. So we're really excited about that, and they will be essentially here before this time in March. They'll be sitting, waiting to be moved into place, because we will be open for the 2026 season. So we're very excited that staying on task and on timeline. The last piece is really putting that approach ramp in and that connection. One thing I'll also comment on this, we get comments about freight movement and passengers, so there's actually separation in those trussels between freight, vehicular traffic and pedestrian traffic. And also we have had covering all the way down the trestle for adverse weather for the passenger side as well. So once again, this all would not be possible without really the support of Royal Caribbean. We're very thankful to them, and this unsolicited proposal we worked together to pull forward for this new project to update the cruise facility. Their guarantee is really 140,000 passengers here, and we're really excited about that commitment. They really believe that the experience that people want to see in Alaska is Seward, and so they've committed to this facility. It's the largest agreement by the cruise industry, so we're really excited to have this long-term commitment to the city and community of Seward as well as the railroad. So with that, I don't know if there are any questions, and I'm well over my 10-minute time.
And just to add more 10 minutes, I just want to wrap up, because I know you had a question
Any
earlier.
objection from the board? No, go ahead,
Thank you,
please.
thank you, Chair. You know, people say, oh, the project's still moving forward, because many of you pay attention to what happens in our capital city in Juneau, and know that the railroad, while we're a separate entity for the state, we're a corporation in the state of Alaska, there's a couple things in our statute that we do need permission for from elected officials, and one of those is just the permission to bond, where the railroad, we use our revenue to back those bonds, so it's not an impact to the citizens of Alaska. You know, our partner, Royal Celebrity, they're backing this project. Well, that bond authorization bill passed 8 minutes after the session ended. So we're going to be back down in Juneau. You know, it has wide support. Everyone sees the value of this project, from the governor to elected officials. It overwhelmingly passed. It was just a timing issue. So the way this real estate transaction was structured is that everything's moving forward. As you hear from Port of Tomorrow and Seward Company, those long lead times are ordered. Everything's moving, you know, grounds being broken, you know, this coming week, getting the corners in and everything else. So it's moving forward, but you will see that we're back in Juneau getting that bond authorization as the final owner-operator to go out for bonding. And that's just, you know, that's all in place, ready to pull the trigger as soon as that bond is authorized and that bill is signed. So we're working with administration, the city's lobbyist, and in being in Juneau, trying to get that to pass. So.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, if I could just add to that too, you know, obviously, we're very committed to this project and it's moving forward. So The railroad has run and owned and operated this facility since 1965. We anticipate that to be at the end the same. But what's going on in Juneau has not slowed us down and will not slow us down. So despite what you might have read on Facebook, we're moving forward full guns because we have a deadline to 2026 season. And we need to make sure that we hit that to the first ship call.
Okay. Questions? Melissa, we're going to start.
Yes, thank you, Chair Jaffa. I just noticed that it looked like the passenger train was going to go up to the dock. Does that mean that it's going to change from where it is now?
Yeah,
and go
that's a
directly-
great question. So what a lot of the community doesn't see is that we have a specific cruise train to some of our ships. So in the morning before 6 a.m., we'll have a cruise train load about 500 passengers and then go, but we'll still have the Coastal Classic coming into the depot. So Seward really is in a great position. You know, you talk about some of the saturation that potentially is happening in South Central Alaska. You don't see the first 500 passengers going out. Like those, they're able to be metered out, spread out to lessen the impact or the perceived impacts to the community. So Depot remains as our public transportation. We will continue to have cruise-specific trains at the terminal.
So that's already in place? then?
That's already what we
That's not
do.
even, nothing's changing there?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't
thank
know
you.
that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Reverend Regis?
Okay, so one of the questions you asked about how do we get the grant, I think when we went to DC, I went to DC last year, and our federal lobbyists and then Senator Sullivan, Senator Murkowski definitely pushed really hard to get that grant. So I think thanking them too is really important.
Yeah, and I'm glad you, through the chair, I'm glad you brought the grant up again as well, because I forgot to mention that many of you know Chris Ershinger, who's in the back of the room with us. Port of Tomorrow Management Group recently brought her on as our controller, and part of that was because of her extensive background in managing grant funding. And so that's part of what we're doing here today, is really to help the city through that process as well. And you are right that we know that the delegation pushed very hard for us here as well. And but I'm really proud, you know, that Seward got the full award. So there were many partials. In fact, the Port of Anchorage received the 1.9, which is really to have a study, a partial. So, and we got the whole thing. So it's really exciting news for us.
Reverend Smith?
Thanks. I was interested if you could speak to the design considerations for that floating dock structure and why that particular design was chosen and what it says 50-year lifespan, kind of how what will that look like over?
Yeah, so through the chair, thank you for the question, Vice Chair. So the facility was really designed, as I mentioned before, we have worked with Royal Caribbean in an unsolicited proposal, which technically means that the railroad did not approach us for the design. We went to the railroad with Royal Caribbean to say, this is what we propose. Royal Caribbean, of course, runs the largest ships around the world. They have more than 200 ports in which they operate in, and we used that as a benchmark to define the design criteria. So we worked with hotel operations, provisioning, the home port group, Captain Nick, who runs navigation, to come up with all the criteria that's required for the floating structure and the way that it needs to operate. In Alaska, as you know, we have such dramatic tides that it becomes very unsafe to operate in a fixed dock position. So knowing that Royal Caribbean essentially is having the long-term customer for the project, it was important for them to have a floating dock. However, because they do run the largest ships in the world, that does afford them that any other cruise line can come and park here. It also, thanks to the railroad, has beefed up the trestle and changed that design, the engineering. We beefed that up for heavier loads. Actually, at the time, we didn't realize when the request came that actually would require us to strengthen the entire deck of the float, because you can't, as you can imagine, you can't just beef up the strength of one element and think it carries across the entire facility. So we had to change the design parameters for that to help handle freight as well. The freight capacity was not a requirement by Royal Caribbean, but because of the railroad's commitment to freight here in Seward, that did get updated. And to your question about the long life of it, the way that it's designed and built is really at that 50-year life with basically a zero maintenance. However, that's not really the way we like to treat things, and within the berthing agreement, we cover the maintenance cost of that as well over the lifespan. So essentially, at the end of the commitment, the dock should be in new and functioning life. I would say that the life of the dock is well over the 60-year mark, if easily, with the maintenance plan that is included with our port agreement.
And I might just add two aspects of that Mickey's definitely talked about in the past, if you've heard him, is that the way that floating dock piece is constructed is it's two barges. So any repairs that are necessary can be done locally in Seward. And I know that Seward Company really made that a priority. And then the other aspect is we do get a lot of questions in Juneau about the capacity to take a ferry at that dock, and we absolutely could take a side-loading ferry. You know, from our perspective, the eventual home that makes the most sense for the ferry system would be that freight dock, to incorporate, you know, the front-loading and the side-loading once that freight dock extension's done. But we are ensuring that this design, and that's with the bollards and the fendering system, can take a side-loading ferry.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that as well, Mr. Chair, is that we did go with the barge system, primarily because if it was going to be serviced at that 748 length, if there was ever a ship that had bumped into it, damaged it, it would have to get towed to Seattle. And we split it up into two pieces so that it could be moved off and serviced here locally. And just to disparage any myths, it's not because it will get removed through the season. And by design, it's designed to sit in the water its entire lifespan. And the other thing, the reason we went with that design is, as you know, that Resurrection Inlet can get some pretty rough waves going out there. And believe it or not, we actually put ballast, a liquid in there that has it sink below the surface by about 22 feet, I think, technically. And that allows it to float more evenly, and that works really well for provisioning and loading of freight and also for the cruise ships. So opposed to most systems that you see around Southeast, which is kind of like a float system versus a barge system. And the second advantage to it as well, besides the stability, is it allowed us to move all of that support for the EPA, the shore power, below deck, so that you can run forklifts and run freight and not have to worry about bumping into something like the electrical handling systems that would normally be on the deck. So it handles the load of that. So it's just a much smarter design for the type of weather that we get here in Seward.
I got a couple. Let's start with Christie. In the freight dock, the diagrams talk about dredging the basin. There's a significant dredging project. Where will that material be wasted?
Yeah, so we haven't permitted that dredging on the full build out yet, but we would work with the agencies. You know, if we're able, we fill as much property at that site as we're able to, but you know, there's always the possibility of dumping it in the bay if we need to, but we haven't gotten to that question yet.
Well, you talked about upland development. I wondered whether any of that was slated for that.
Yeah, I mean, we're absolutely going to use that for those lots 1 through 3 at the airport. You know, we piecemeal as much of fill that we can, so we would look at using those materials.
And then for Mickey, on the same kind of topic, as you expand the new passenger facility, you'll be getting in the area where the Seward Grain Terminal foundations were. Those will be excavated and removed, or what goes on with them?
Yeah, that was one reason that we did the test piles, was to make sure that there was anything that we were unaware of in the ground that we could hit and we could remove and deal with appropriately. So there's a mitigation plan for all of that. Those existing areas. Also, to just reassure you as well, there's a mitigation plan for, as you know, anytime you go to a non-greenfield site that's existed since 1965, you have no idea what you're going to hit in the ground. And so there is a very clear mitigation plan for that as well in our plan to make sure that we can stay on time and stay on schedule. And also, the one reason that Jake is here today from Turnagain is that if you have engineering questions about that as well, he's able to answer questions along the engineering side of that.
Oh, I'm satisfied. I'm fully aware of discoveries.
Yeah.
If I may add on the grain side of the terminal, the plan is to not excavate them all in whole.
Oh.
If discovered, we'll mitigate to a certain amount below finished grade and remove that bit, and then the rest will be left in place and backfilled.
Not hurting anything?
Yeah.
Your parking lot will be over the top of it or something?
There are some existing voids that will be filled when discovered. So the silos are still open.
I had several other questions for Vicki, but I think you did a great job of answering them, but I'll come to one of them. When you mentioned the barge system, I suppose this is going to be compartmentalized. I'm familiar with the Hood Canal sinking and Lake Washington sinking, and those were individual cells that things went wrong.
Yeah, like, maybe Jay can speak to the way that the barge is designed and structured. The one thing I will comment on is, I know that you probably are aware of the float system that was on its way to Skagway earlier in the year that basically broke apart because it was getting hauled in rough weather and caused some great delay. And Skagway, actually one of our construction partners, built that. They're very good builders, but it was towed up during adverse weather. And one thing with our systems and what we've done in the past when Turnagain's built it is we actually bring in a lift ship and we float it all on a lift barge into place. So that way we can mitigate any type of damage that might be done by trying to haul it across open seas. So that's the plan for this as well. But Jake, I don't know if you want to speak to the design of the barge system.
Yeah, the barges are fully compartmentalized. They're all accessible by manhole, like waterproof manhole. Essentially it's 3 compartments wide and maybe 20 long for each barge, the compartments. The exterior ones, every other hole will be ballasted to secure those barges in place, and the center one's left open for utilities and utility access. One for the shore power, for the water that's going on the dock, electric, all that kind of stuff.
Does a structure like that require by some sort of regulation, regular inspection, an inspection?
Yeah, I think it will require annual maintenance, just visual mostly. Yeah.
And to the chair, that'll be where we get, the railroad itself has a very robust engineering department. We have a facilities department. We will definitely put that on an inspection schedule just to ensure that we're.
So the railroad would operate the dock once it's constructed?
Yes, it will be seamless to what we have now. So we'll own and operate the facility. So someone is building the house for us, and we're going to buy it in the end, and then operate that.
Sure. Okay. So that's good information. Battery system. Of course, change in administration in Washington has changed somewhat commitments to EPA, but my initial thought when I heard of the election and Tesla's influence in the administration is, I assume these are going to be Tesla batteries that are currently designed?
Mr. Chairman, we really, I come out of the tech space, and I know anytime you buy anything that plugs in anywhere, you usually have buyer's remorse after the fact. And so what I'm trying to do, and as we work with the city utility, is to actually push that battery decision to the very end of this process. We do, through Royal Caribbean, have a partnership with Tesla. And you know how partnerships go. It's like when you go to a conference and the hotel is part of the conference package, and you say, oh, use this code to get a discount. It's actually more than you'd pay to just book it yourself. So we don't really know if that really is the case with the batteries. Like, we have an incentive through Royal to look at Tesla batteries, but there are other vendors out there. And what we're trying to do is to get the most bang for our buck. And we have worked through the EPA, the city manager, Kat's did a fantastic job. And what we've discovered is, that's a large portion of the budget of these batteries. But if we can save money in the batteries, even though it's in our budget for X number of batteries, if we can save money through the process, we could actually add more batteries to the battery bank, which would extend the life, the plug-in time for the ship. And also, as we know, that it's a two-way battery system, so it doesn't just feed the port. Like, you had to turn on generator backups here in the city over the last few days, that we could actually avoid that by switching the batteries to actually power the city. The battery and ship requirements are basically one-to-one with the same city requirements. And I think our goal is ultimately to maybe get as much as 24 hours for city power, depends on the season, off of the battery bank. So essentially, if you had to go to a generator, you could say, we're just going to flip the switch at the substation and run the local community here off the battery system. So It's a huge, huge advantage, and we're really trying to save money wherever we can. And I know we have a meeting after this, but our goal is to, the way I operate is that I don't want to get caught in the end and under budget. And so what we really did in this process with the EPA was to put numbers that were not conservative. We knew that we could get it done for that, and if we could save money, it could get applied elsewhere. So I'd really like to see us expand what we were able to do. AvTech, that was $1 million in the budget. I'd like to see that expanded, expand the amount of money that we're putting into the battery system to extend the life and the time that we can run off of them, so. But I'm not quite sure that we'll end up with Tesla, but I mean, it's a great marketing slogan.
They're in the
so,
market.
yeah.
So obviously you have to put comparative numbers up to do any kind of plan like this. I mean, cost advantage, cost to produce, or cost of revenue. One of the things that I have heard from people is the regular operation of the generators, which is done for cycling and maintenance reasons to improve them. Hopefully the batteries could absorb that energy. That would be a railroad operations issue, or?
No, the utility, as you know here, Mr. Chairman, is owned by the city. Everything all the way to the substation of the port will be owned and operated by the city. So this $50 million EPA grant, while there'll be some handling systems on the dock, and there'll be some lines that run out to the floats themselves, everything else is owned by the city, including the batteries.
Oh, okay.
So it's all to this advantage of sewer. So it's really, really great, as I said, to get the entire award, because your utility can use this to its advantage. And really, the way the battery system is worked is through AI, is basically to monitor the usage of the system and be able to take power when it doesn't affect the system. So as we know in traditional electrical use, that the power that's running through those lines, if it doesn't get used, it just goes into the vapor and disappears. And we're trying to collect that without causing an adverse effect on the community grid.
I think you've done a heck of a job of answering questions. You've been through this a couple times, and I know you've been, your public presentations have been well received. It's very enthusiastic. It's a very encouraging process and project. And regarding what you just said, it's funny how just sometimes when you delay something, you wind up with an opportunity. The city was going to talk about spending money on something that this project is going to do better.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I appreciate that, but I also want to commend city and city administration. And as you look around communities in Alaska, cruise communities, I think opening that dialogue and looking for long-term solutions, I think the cruise industry, I know ourselves, Turnagain's Cruise Line Partners, are about long-term solutions. And I think when you look to the long-term and really how we're going to really solve the problem, our original budget called for about $6.9 million in shore power, but that was really just a Band-Aid. It wasn't a real fix. And so to be able to work with the city to get the real fix done and look long-term, that's, and I know our legislative body really helped, but I think that's really the difference. And I would just encourage the city to continue to be forward-leading and look, as you said, we don't know what's going to happen in the environment. Look 50 years down the road. What's going to happen, and let's start thinking about the 50-year plan versus what's going to happen in the next 2 years, and looking at a real solution will solve the 2-year problems.
No, I don't think any of us can look 50 years. Any other questions for Mickey or Christie? Well, I really appreciate you bringing your team down here and presenting to us. I know you've talked to council, you've talked to the public. I don't know what your next presentation will be, but we look forward to this project spudding soon. I'd see your schedule. It sounds like you're already making commitments to the thing, so I mean it's going clear ahead. It's going ahead. So.
Yeah, we're fully moving ahead, and just for those watching also online, if you have questions, I'm the easiest email ever, which is just the letter m@portertomorrow.com. So drop me an email if you have a question, and we're more than happy to stay engaged even though we're not here in Seward.
So I have one question for you guys. Is there anything you can think that this board can do to help your project?
I say keep the open communications. We would love an invitation back so that you're informed along the way. We also look to improve Port Avenue is what we're doing. And so there's been a little bit of a committee formed around how do we improve that, because we want to make sure the passenger flow, as we're looking at the larger project, also leads to improvements along Port Avenue, and I think that any kind of suggestions along Port Avenue and working with the chamber on that is going to be crucial as we get into I call it the finishing touches, right? So
Waiting for that. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming, and we definitely will keep you in mind and on our radar as we're moving forward.
thank you.
Okay, so we'll go back to our agenda. We have no unfinished business, no resolutions. We do, once a year, need to look at our officers. We have a chair and a vice chair, and I'll open nominations for, we'll take one at a time. We'll take the chair first.
Easiest, yes.
So any nominations for the chair?
I'll nominate Bruce for the chair.
Okay. The nominations do not require a second per Roberts, so I will accept that. Should we vote on that? I'd like to speak on that. I consider myself a short timer here for a long time, but I am getting shorter. I don't mean physically shorter, but I'm getting to the point where I have other priorities. So we really need to do our recruiting, and any of you who would like to assume this role at any time, I'm more than happy to explain what's necessary to the best of my knowledge. That's what I gotta say. Okay, call for vote.
So we're calling for the vote on nominating Jaffa, Scudder,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Regis,
Yes.
Atwood,
Yes.
and of course Chair Jaffa.
I will.
Okay.
And so I ask for nominations for vice chair. And I will nominate Vice Chair Smith, who may want to speak to this.
I appreciate the nomination. Yeah, I'll accept that role. What's this, my second term is close approaching the end. It's been, a lot has happened in this last 4 years here. I've learned a lot in doing this job, and I appreciate that nomination. Thank you.
Do we want to vote on Vice Chair?
Please vote.
Okay. Voting on Vice Chair, Atwood,
Yes.
Regis,
Yes.
Scudder,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes, I'll accept that.
and Chair Jaffa.
Yes. Okay, so we have returned our chair and vice chair. Thank you, Board Member Smith. I know you have a lot of distractions in the world right now, so do we all. Reminder of meetings, regular meeting. Our next regular meeting is February 5th. I'm not sure what's on the agenda. One of the things that I think we really need to flesh out is whether we are going to have a summer hiatus. We've gone back and forth on that. I saw the most recent city the schedule that actually it was a request for applicants, and it clearly stated a hiatus. But we've talked about changing our schedule. We need to solidify that one way or another. So I would like to see that on our next agenda. Maybe a little background. Any other issues, other items? None. Anyone else? So citizen comments. We have our presenters, and you're welcome to speak as presenters or citizens or however. Okay. So we'll come back to the board and administration. And how do we typically ask the administration first for comments, or do we ask the board and then, yeah, okay. So we ask the administration to comment on our meetings?
Sure, well, thank you so much to our presenters, that was wonderful. And I'll just remind everyone that I forgot to mention, the Polar Bear Jump Off is this Saturday. And then the Sports and Rec has brought back the Polar Bear Carnival. So from 1 to 4, yeah, woo! From 1 to 4 in AbTech, there'll be games and goodies, so check it out.
And to echo Ashley there, thank you so much for that presentation. It was great the first time last year when you guys were here, and there's just a lot of information there. It's very exciting to see that get rolling, and great for Seward. Also, and I would invite everyone and encourage everyone to come down Saturday for the Polar Bear Jump and take part of that festivity. It's a lot of fun.
So we'll go to our rookie, Board Member Regis.
Yeah, so the Port Avenue project that you're talking about upgrades, I know that when I was acting city manager, we were working with people around town, and they're looking at some places they could stop, get out of the rain. You know, we always talk about 2 sidewalks each side of the street because they don't go to the other side. They walk down there in front of the industrial area, which is, you know, somehow we got to get them across the street. But I think that Jason has the plans that we had and all the stops that we had scheduled around town with the buses. So he has all that. If you probably already have that, but.
Yeah, if I could just comment really quickly, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we have already met with the city, and that master plan has existed for a long time. So we were trying to look at that, but also we came down during the summer months, during one of the heavy cruise days, and we literally, like I like to say that we all need to go into lawn chair mode, and that is to pull our lawn chairs out and watch what happens so that we know what works and what doesn't. And it was very clear there's some obstacles that basically encourage people to stay on the wrong side of the street, and we need to look at that. Also, we want to do a better job of telling the city story, so informational signage. We also worked with your local Native organization in Chugach to be involved, to also make sure that we're telling that side of the history as well as along the way. So we really are trying, we created a group to try to work through some of those elements, but we really have tried to study it, not during the winter months, but when people are here and very active. But that plan was very helpful in what we were trying to achieve as a good starting point.
Okay. Board Member Atwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And also thank you, Mr. Chair and Vice Chair, for re-upping and taking the responsibility. I know that it's a lot of work, and I appreciate that. And great presentation. Even though I'm knowledgeable of much of what's been presented, there's always something new. I like the idea a lot of dusting off some planning for the Port Avenue pedestrian improvements. I've lived here for a while, and I've seen issues with our visitors. So anyway, that's great stuff. I'm looking forward to that. And again, I think we had a great meeting today, and I thank everybody who attended. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Board Member Sutter.
Thank you, Chair Jaffa. Yes, again, just echoing everybody else, thank you to the presenters. That was a great presentation. It's great to see you guys back down here again, and you always seem to come down when the weather is just so beautiful outside. I want to thank City Administration, Ashley, for reminding everybody about the Polar Bear Jump this weekend. I had actually forgot about that myself, so thank you for that reminder. And a big thank you to Chair Jaffa and Vice Chair Smith for taking on those roles again. I would like to encourage everyone to sign up for that Chamber newsletter. It's some great information that's put out by the Chamber of Commerce. And with the lack of a newspaper in Seward, that's just one avenue that citizens can use to keep up on what's going on. The Chamber does a pretty good job about reaching out to areas like the Port of Tomorrow and the city of Seward and whatnot to share that information as it becomes available to them. And also encourage everyone to attend the State of the Chamber meeting on January 30th at the Breeze Inn, just to get an update on what the Chamber is doing and what they have plans to do. So that's it. Thank you.
Board Member Smith, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Thank you to the Port of Tomorrow and Alaska Road for another excellent presentation. I've been really impressed with the amount of information and the venues. The transparency in this project is definitely notable and sets a benchmark for this sort of impactful work. Also for the city, was it Sunday when we were all hunkered down in 50-mile-an-hour winds, the line crew and the contractors that responded to dozens of trees on the lines and broken poles and worked through the night just tirelessly. that is truly remarkable. I think, as we get our electric bill separate now, we can maybe appreciate some of the work and effort that goes into maintaining electricity in a location like this. It is, I'm in awe of their work, honestly. And it'll be interesting how that battery will help us out next time too in an event like that. So, and thank you for the nomination to continue as vice chair. Appreciate it.
Okay. Well, thank you, and thank you for your confidence in selecting me or letting me be your chair again. As I say, I do hope to find other activities, and I may be winding down, but I won't leave a void. I would like to echo Board Member Smith on the electric crew. Not only were they diligent and showed tremendous effort in the face of adversity that few can imagine. I mean, this is exposure to the worst conditions. But the electric department did a hell of a job of keeping the public notified. Even in Moose Pass, where I had outages as well, where Facebook pictures and notifications allowed people to understand that there were efforts being made in their behalf. And when I see Facebook or Meta or X or whatever blows up, it's usually from misinformation. And the kind of things like we have today in this presentation and what the electric department did about keeping people aware that something is going on, I think it makes everybody feel a little more comfortable, more willing to, I'll hunker down for another 6 hours or whatever it is. So a lot of credit to the city crews. And it's not just the electric department, it was the public works department. And today we have a pile of snow. I mean, these guys are on their job. It goes on and on. The railroad has the same thing. The people on the docks have the same thing. The cops, the fire department. Public service, it comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes. It needs to be appreciated. A lot of people think that they're paying a lot of money and they don't know what is being paid for. Most of these people don't go out and beat their own chest. They're not promoting themselves. They don't have a cheerleader squad. So, we have the opportunity at this kind of a board to thank them, and we shall. I'd like to thank Seward Company. You're well named. Not only is it a great plan and a tremendous effort to move a project forward from just an idea to fruition, the name tells it all, and the enthusiasm for the community, I think, is noteworthy. And as Board Member Smith said, the transparency in this project, for this amount of money, there's often a lot of guarded, I work in the oil field, and people spend this kind of money and you don't even know it. So this is really great to see. I would say on one other topic, as citizens, we need to work with our legislatures. The session is starting, not only for immediate Seward needs, but for our kids. There is as the papers are noting, there's a tremendous economic shortfall, or a funding shortfall. And it's not just a matter of 8 minutes or whatever to get a bond issue. This is much deeper. And it's going to take letters to our legislatures. And Seward has a different legislator than I have in Moose Pass. But we need to write to them and let them know that this is one of the functions of state government. I had 3 kids that went to Seward school. They benefited from Seward. They've gone to other communities and they've enhanced their communities. And that's because they had a good education. So I didn't like school, but I learned in spite of it. And that's what we need as citizens to do with our kids, help them learn. Okay, anything else? Okay, so we'll adjourn, move to adjourn. Any objections? Okay, we're adjourned, 1:13.